In this podcast, we're going to deal with priorities. This can be quite confusing to a learner driver, so we need to try and keep it as simple as possible to help get them to understand it. With the priorities, in simple terms, if the blockage is on our side of the road, we don't have priority. If the blockage is on the other side of the road and our lane is clear, then we do have priority. So that's the way I'd introduce it to my students. And usually the blockage is going to be something like a parked car. So if we have to move onto the other side of the road to get past the blockage, we have to borrow the other side's tarmac. We can only do this if it's safe, so we need to be looking well ahead, making decisions. If there are parked cars on both sides of the road, this means that neither party has priority, and I'd sometimes refer to this as a 50-50. And in that situation, we'd have to look and decide what the oncoming traffic is doing. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But if there's traffic both sides, it's a 50-50. Now, into the mix, we also need to bring hills into our discussion. So basically, if it's a 50-50 and you are travelling down the hill and a vehicle is coming up the hill towards you, you should be giving way to the traffic coming up the hill. The reason for this is it's much harder for a vehicle to stop on an uphill slope and then get going again, especially if it's a bigger vehicle, an HGV or something like that. Or if the road surface is slippery, maybe it's icy or loose gravel and grit. So in a 50-50, traffic coming up the hill has priority. If it's a 50-50 and we're both approaching the pinch point at the same time, we'd need to be looking at the body language of the oncoming vehicle. And some people will be coming through the gap. In that case, we're going to hold back, but they might also wait for us. In that case, with caution, we would proceed through the gap. Quite a lot of people will hold back for you, and they might flash their lights. Now, that's something that we would definitely encourage our learners not to do. The problem with flashing the lights, it can be a signal that is misinterpreted by others. So, for example, if somebody's holding back the other side of the pinch point, and they flash their lights, and we go through assuming that the signal is for us. But just imagine that there's a pedestrian just standing out of our view behind a lorry or a van who's waiting to cross the road. And that pedestrian has seen the flashing lights, and as we're coming up to that van, he steps out thinking that the driver has signalled for him to cross. So you can quite clearly see that flashing lights can lead to accidents. So definitely do not encourage your learners to flash or wave. So we've now discussed the basics of priorities, but of course, as always, we can't always guarantee that other drivers are going to do what we expect them to do. So if you've got a clear situation where there's a parked car on the right, technically you would have priority, but it's possible that the oncoming car won't hold back for you. And the reasons for that are that they might have misjudged your speed and distance, they might have misjudged the size of the gap, they might be in a hurry and not want to wait for you, or they might be travelling in at speed and not have time to stop, or they might just be one of those perhaps arrogant drivers who are always going to try and push their way through the gaps. So a good lesson to teach your learner is, no matter if technically on paper you have got priority, always be expecting the other drivers to do something unexpected so that you're ready for that. In these circumstances, obviously, you'd need to train your learner to react to what's happening ahead of them and be prepared to hold back. So in any situation, if you're not sure, always be ready to hold back. And that way, you're keeping yourself and your learners safe. As always, if you want to contact us, please feel free to message us.